What is up guys, welcome back to the channel. So in this video I'll be telling you guys how you can clear the heat one of this challenge. So as you guys can see here, I have cleared the heat one with 2 losses, but here's the thing guys, I reached 9 wins without a single loss, and I lost a couple of matches after I reached 9 wins. So the thing is, after I reached 5 wins I started facing all the top players. So this was the first top player that I faced. So after 5 wins, after this, all of them were top players. For some reason, after you reach 5 wins, you'll be only facing top players mostly. So the deck I was using is this one, the same lava loon deck that I almost use in all my videos. So the first and foremost important tip for using this deck is, if you guys are used to playing heavy decks, then only go for this one. If you are more of a hawk cycle kind of person, then definitely don't use this deck, because once you reach 5 wins, you're gonna be facing a lot of top players, and I mean it guys, you're gonna be facing a lot of top players. So if you're not used to this deck, then don't go for this one. That's the first advice. And another thing guys, if you are gonna be using this deck, and let me just show you guys this replay here. So I'll just give you guys some starters. So if you are maybe a golem deck user, then you might find this deck easier, but if you're a cycle deck user like hawk cycle, then definitely don't go for this one. And guys, you need to be aware of decks like these. Most of the top players, they do use the Royal Giant cycle decks, and they can be pretty tough for our deck since we are using a lava loon. So you guys need to maintain a pressure on them. You guys can't let them keep on cycling their Royal Giant. So keep a pressure, and I almost say this in all my videos, if you are using the lava loon deck, you need to get to that overtime and have a good damage. So in overtime, as you guys can see, by good damage I don't mean if he takes down one of your towers, you need to take down one of his. By good damage I just mean that if he manages to take down one of your tower, you need to get like a 1000 or a 1500 damage on his tower before the last 1 minute. Because if you're facing a cycle deck, and if your opponent is able to take down one of your tower and you haven't even touched this tower, or maybe just got like a 500 or a very even lower damage than that, you're definitely gonna lose. So yeah, this deck, as you can see, it's a lava loon, so you just need to place the lava horn and put the balloon behind it. So if you are having like facing an opponent who is having an inferno tower, then just put the balloon directly towards the inferno tower. So that's the foremost thing that you need to do when you're facing a opponent who has an inferno tower. So this guy was having an inferno tower, and guys, there is another deck, this deck many people will be using. Most of the top players will be using the graveyard cycle deck or the Royal Giant cycle deck, but you guys can definitely expect a top player to use a cycle deck. And finding decks like the P.E.K.K.A one, it would be rare, but you will be facing decks like this for sure, the Royal Giant cycle and the graveyard cycle. These will be the most of the players will be using these, so be aware. And if you're facing a Royal Giant cycle deck or a graveyard cycle deck, do remember this, you need to maintain a pressure on your opponent. But just for saying, the Royal Giant cycle deck is easier to face when you're using a lava cycle or a lava loon deck or any balloon deck, but graveyard can be a really big problem for our deck. So if you're facing an opponent who's using a graveyard deck, then definitely save up your barbarians and your skeleton dragons to counter the graveyard, because if you don't, then you won't have anything to defend it. And guys, if you're using an arrow or a zap in the graveyard, use it after 4 or 3 seconds after he places his graveyard. Don't just instantly put the zap spell as he throws his graveyard at your tower. So this is really important. The timing of your zap or any spell that you're going to be using to counter the graveyard is going to be really important, because it may happen that you may not have anything to defend the graveyard. So your spell placement is going to be really important. You can't be too early. So too early is basically if you put down your spell to defend the graveyard before like 3 seconds of him placing the graveyard. So yeah, definitely try to time it around 3 or 4 seconds after he places his graveyard, so there will be more skeletons in the area and you'll be able to counter more of them. And arrows is the best thing to defend the graveyard, because there are like 2 or 3 waves it sends, so it will be able to counter down most of the skeletons, so it's definitely better than that. So you guys can definitely use arrows as a counter for the attack. And the rocket arch firecracker, not rocket archer, so the firecracker is also a big trouble. So if your opponent has a firecracker, then try to take it out with the miner or the arrow. So preferably use arrows, because I don't know if it's just me or it happens to everyone. I'm never able to take out the firecracker with my miner. She just throws the shot and she goes behind, so that's a big problem. And if you can manage to put the miner and a zap, you will be able to kill the firecracker, but that won't be a good trade since you will be spending 5 elixir to do that. So I'll definitely say throw the arrows at the rocket archer to take her out. So that's it for now, guys. I'll be starting the heat 2 now. So thanks for watching the video. Subscribe if you're new to the channel.